Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, and I am actually supposed to be in Hawaii right now, but unfortunately the conference I was attending was canceled, and so I decided, if you are watching this, to wear one of these shirts that I was going to be wearing in Hawaii. So I think I look rather festive here in the tundra that is Chicago. And so with that, let's get going. And I'd like to thank the following people before we begin: Chris Fallon, Jason Dance, Neville Goodalls, and Alexandre Blanc, excuse me. Guys, thank you very much. I always appreciate the help. And if you have a tip for me, please tag me, message me, throw up a smoke signal, whatever it is. I'm always grateful for the help. And with that, let's start in LA, because we are talking about the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Now, they've been accused of deliberately keeping basically widespread gaps in their cybersecurity defensive posture a secret from regulators in a large-scale cover-up that involves the city mayor. Now, the allegations were made by Ardent Cyber Solutions. This is a company that was hired by the Department of Water and Power in April of last year to perform cybersecurity work. I would presume also an assessment. In a 10-page claim filed against the city earlier this year, Ardent states that it uncovered, and I quote, "an extremely high number of unpatched vulnerabilities in the company's corporate IT network." Now, according to Ardent, basically the board, the Water and Power Board President Mel Levine, and their senior executives were informed of these security issues by email on August 12, 2019, but rather than actually address these issues, Levine and the board, as well as city officials, quote, "made false statements and failed to disclose material facts in a bid to cover them up." So that is a very serious issue. And one of the things that I really recommend to my clients is transparency in situations like this, and obviously creating actual, cyber defense strategy planning to harden your defenses. Please don't cover things up. It's basically a ticking time bomb, and you don't want to be put into that situation. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Blisk web browser, or Blisk browser. Now, this is developed out of Estonia. It's a Chromium-based offshoot tailored for web and app developers, and basically it comes with support for things like developer tools, device previewing capabilities, project collaboration tools, and more. Unfortunately, they're leaking user data after they accidentally left an Elasticsearch server open and exposed on the internet without a password. Now, Blisk is used by about 40,000 companies, and this is where this gets tricky, because big names like HP, Xerox, NASA, UNICEF, Deloitte, UEFA, Vice News, and Pandora all use Blisk for their development. And so heads up, we may see a whole lot of leaks coming from a whole lot of places. We're not sure yet. Moving on, excuse me, let's talk about O2 UK, the communications outfit. In an email sent to their customers, O2 UK's partner, Aerial Direct, said that an unauthorized third party was able to access data on basically February 26 through an external backup database, which included personal information on both current and expired subscribers from the last 6 years. The data accessed includes personal information such as names, dates of birth, business addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, and product information. The company said no passwords or financial information was taken, and hopefully they've locked that down. Moving on, let's talk about the city of Durham in North Carolina. They shut down their network after suffering a cyber attack that basically they got hit with the Ryuk ransomware this weekend via a phishing attack. I don't have much more on that, but hopefully Durham is going to be getting that straightened out and back online. And the next one, we're going to be talking about the Swedish Data Protection Authority. And in advance, I apologize to any Swedes watching or listening to this, as I completely butcher the name of the Swedish Data Protection Authority, the Data Inspektionen. I'm assuming I pronounced that right, and 9 times out of 10, I guarantee you I didn't, so I apologize, my Swedish friends. But they, the Swedish Data Protection Authority, let's go with that, issued Google a fine of 75 million kroner, which is roughly $8 million US, for failing to comply with Europe's GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation. Now, in 2017, the Swedish Data Protection Agency, the DPA, conducted an audit at Google and discovered a number of search results that had not been removed. Google was then ordered to remove the search results. However, a follow-up audit in 2018 found that Google had still not removed them. Now, by virtue of this, this could technically be a type of data breach. Even though we're talking about public data, it was ordered to be removed. It should have been, and it wasn't, which means if it's still publicly available, that's a violation. technically it's a breach, at least in my book. Moving on, let's talk about Facebook because, well, they're always in the news for this. 2 huge databases containing records of over 300 million Facebook users, including user IDs, phone numbers, and names, have been leaked online. Now, this breach was detected by security researcher Bob Diachenko, and you've probably heard that name a lot because this is pretty much what he does for a living, is just find these vulnerabilities and report on them. And quite frankly, he's doing the cyber lord's work here. He found this database last December. Now, Diachenko believes that a large collection of Facebook user data was actually collected by cyber criminals in Vietnam, either through illegal scraping operations or by abusing the social network's API system based on the evidence that he uncovered. And this is not the first time that Facebook has basically lost complete control of somebody grabbing information from there because they have very poor control and visibility into who gets back-end access into what. Moving on, let's head over to Marseille, France, where I guarantee you I'm going to be butchering more words. So heads up, Swedes, you're not alone. The French are about to get angry with me as well. A massive and widespread, quote-unquote, cyber attack hit the city of Marseille, as well as the metropolis Aix-Marseille-Provence, and I'm assuming I'm pronouncing 2 of those 3 correctly. And to quote, some 300 machines were made inoperative, according to the National Information Systems Security Agency, on the Aix-Marseille-Provence metropolis, as well as Martigues, Bouches du Rhône, which again, I am so sorry to my French viewers and listeners. Now, this is according to a source close to the investigation. To quote, this will not affect the elections, but there are machines that were to create the proxy signing lists. This is a Google Translate from an article, so bear with me here. Therefore, these will have to be done by hand, said the source. So the elections in France apparently are still going on. They're just going to be done by hand, which quite frankly is probably more secure if done properly. Moving on, let's head down under to Australia, and let's talk about the Australian branch of Mannheim Auctions. They previously confirmed they were a target of a ransomware attack on February 14th, but in a statement released this past Tuesday, Western Australia's Consumer Protection Agency revealed the extent of the attack and how much the cyber criminals were asking for. They were asking for $30 million in Australian currency. So heads up, if you have anything to do with Mannheim Auctions in Australia, that might still be under investigation. Moving on, let's talk about Antheus Tecnologica. They are out of Brazil. Their web server containing records of about 76,000 unique fingerprints was left exposed on the internet, researchers said this past Wednesday. The unsecured fingerprint database, also included employee email addresses and telephone numbers. This has now been secured. So if you have anything to do with Antheus Tecnologica out of Brazil, heads up. Moving on, let's talk about NordVPN. They are back in the news and on my radar for the second time in about 6 months because here we go. NordVPN has patched a serious flaw that could have exposed users' details to others. This was first discovered by a bug bounty hunter, and this vulnerability basically existed in their payment system. Now, the researcher found that sending an HTTP post request without any kind of authentication to join.nordvpn.com could let anybody view anybody else's data. And so it was very easy to simply change the numbers and then gain access to basically registered users' information and get their details. That's obviously a very serious issue. And NordVPN now says they have patched that flaw. So heads up, NordVPN users. Moving on, let's head to LaSalle County, Illinois. Hundreds of computers at the county's administrative offices in Ottawa, Illinois, have been basically rendered unusable due to ransomware. We are talking about 200 computers and 40 servers, and they are now in the process of using pen and paper to resolve anything in the county until they basically dig themselves out of this mess. This county is small. It basically has a population of 109,000. Nevertheless, that is basically shutting them down. Moving on, let's talk about ADP. This is the massive payroll data processing place. They disclosed a breach to the Vermont state government, and I've got the official notice here, and it said, and to quote ADP's notification, Unfortunately, on February 10, 2020, we discovered that some of your tax information for 2019 or prior years was potentially accessed by an unauthorized user. Please be assured we've taken every necessary step, yada, yada, yada. Now, under the What Happens section, we have confirmed between January 24th and February 11th of 2020, an unauthorized user accessed your ADP self-service account. Our investigation shows that they used your correct username and password and potentially downloaded some of your tax information for 2019 or prior years. There are a variety of ways the unauthorized user could have acquired these credentials, including that these credentials may have been previously compromised from non-ADP accounts. In other words, they are claiming a credential surfing attack. If I go to the dark web and find your username and password, I'm going to try to log into absolutely everything on the planet, from banks to social media to places like ADP. And so ADP themselves are not saying that their infrastructure or users, meaning employees, were compromised in any which way. Your passwords got dumped and you were using them somewhere else, and you're using them on ADP and now you got hit. So heads up, if you use ADP, change your password. Moving on, this is one of the last two things I want to be talking about here, and this is crazy because this is affecting Amazon, eBay, Shopify, PayPal, and Stripe. Researchers have discovered another huge database containing millions of European customer records left unsecured in an Amazon Web Services database for anybody to basically find using a search engine. You could Google it, basically. A total of 8 million records were involved, collected via marketplace and payment system APIs belonging to those companies. As I mentioned, Amazon, eBay, Shopify, PayPal, and Stripe, and I'm sure more. The AWS instance basically had a MongoDB database that became visible on February 3rd, and this included names, shipping addresses, email addresses, phone numbers, items purchased, payments, order IDs, links to Stripe and Shopify invoices, and partially redacted credit cards. Also included were thousands of Amazon Marketplace Web Services queries, an MWS authentication token for the marketplace, and an Amazon Web Services Access Key ID. That's a very serious issue, which could potentially gain somebody access deeper into the system. That's a serious issue. And finally, I want to talk about open exchange rates. Now, they provide an API that allows organizations to query real-time and historical exchange rates for over 200 world currencies. This service's website states that their API is used by companies like Etsy, Shopify, Coinbase, Kickstarter, and on and on and on. Now, in a breach notification that they'd sent out just a couple of days ago, Open Exchange Rates explained that while investigating a network misconfiguration that was causing delays in their service, they discovered that an unauthorized user had gained access to their network and a database that included user information. And after further investigations, it was discovered that the hacker had access to their system for almost a month between February 9th and March 2nd of this year, and that data was most likely extracted from their systems. Now, the data affected, according to this disclosure, is the name and email address you registered with, an encrypted or hashed password used by you to access your account, and also to connect platforms, IP addresses that you have logged as you registered or are logging in, app IDs, which are basically 32-character strings used to make requests to their service, and those are basically associated with your account, personal and or business name and address, country of residence, and website address if you provided those last couple of bits. Now, as the customer API keys for the service may have also been exposed, Open Exchange Rates is recommending that we generate new IDs. So if you are in any one of those companies or you're using Open Exchange Rates, you really need to reissue those new API IDs to resecure your stuff. What makes this interesting, though, is that this all stems from a network misconfiguration. And I know that these large companies have vast arrays of infrastructure, but one of those things that we are continuously preaching in cybersecurity, and that is an adherence to all cybersecurity frameworks, is both maintenance planning and improvement planning. These things should be continuously checked in the same way that we offer vulnerability scanning and penetration testing to validate for things like PCI compliance for credit cards every 90 days to make sure that nobody's accidentally opened something on a firewall. And so it really behooves organizations and institutions to maintain this update cycle as much as they can. But when you are looking at this list, we have possible issues with Amazon, eBay, Shopify, PayPal, Stripe, Coinbase, Kickstarter, not to mention ADP, Facebook, and a whole bunch of other massive names, not to mention a cover-up by the city of LA. So this week was insane, and perfect to wear my Hawaiian shirt for. So that is those are your breaches of the week. Were you affected? I'm kind of thinking you were this week, and hopefully you weren't, and I hope all of you guys are staying safe and healthy. And with that, please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.